Welcome to Built, Wired, and Secured. I'm Alex Morgan. In today's episode, we're discussing lifted lines, managing elevators as critical tech infrastructure, what it is, why it matters, and what decision makers need to know to avoid costly mistakes. Joining me today is Michael Harrington as we break down real-world lessons, common challenges, and practical takeaways you can apply immediately. Let's dive in. Picture this. It's a Monday morning, a high-rise with multiple tenants. An elevator control cabinet loses power during a storm, and several cars go offline. Tenants are backed up in lobbies, delivery schedules miss windows, security staff are rerouting foot traffic, and an elderly tenant ends up stranded long enough to trigger an emergency call. The outage ripples across operations and reputation. Who does this impact? Everyone in the building. And it's exactly the kind of risk that hides when elevators are treated as isolated mechanical assets.
From an operational standpoint, that scenario is all too common. Elevators touch power, fire and life safety systems, access control, and now often the building network itself. When any one of those pieces fails, you don't just inconvenience tenants, you create cascading operational and security challenges. Tenants feel this immediately, and operators feel it in the costs and the frantic phone calls that follow.
What's inside the shaft and the machine room that we should be thinking about? Michael, walk us through the systems that make an elevator more than pulleys and motors.
Start with the obvious: drive machinery, controllers, and safety gear. But modern systems include networked controllers for diagnostics, remote service ports, building management interfaces, and sometimes IP cameras or card readers integrated at the car or lobby. Power is a major dependency, both normal supply and backup. A single breaker, a shared UPS, or an improperly documented transfer switch can become a single point of failure. Those are the things that quietly turn elevators into critical infrastructure nodes.
So network connectivity is common now. That introduces both benefits, like remote diagnostics, and risk. How do facilities and IT teams usually misalign around that?
Often, the vendor owns the elevator controller and wants network access for maintenance. The building IT team sees another device on the network. The ownership question gets fuzzy. Who maintains firmware? Who approves remote access? And who documents failover procedures? Without clear boundaries, maintenance windows, and network segmentation, you end up with unmanaged endpoints that can affect broader network health or be unreachable exactly when you need them most.
Segment 2. Trade-offs. Balancing security, access, and uptime. Michael, you've said before, that's fine until it fails. Explain the trade-offs building teams face.
Exactly. A common trade-off is limiting remote vendor access to protect the network versus allowing remote access for quick troubleshooting. Restrict access and you may delay fixes and extend downtime. Allow broad access and you potentially widen your attack surface. Another trade-off involves firmware updates. Delaying updates avoids immediate compatibility headaches, but leaves systems exposed or unsupported in the long run. The operational choice needs to weigh tenant impact. If elevators go down, you affect tenant safety and service continuity against security posture and compliance requirements.
What about lockout procedures and manual operation? Those are safety critical, but can clash with tenant access expectations.
Right. Manual or emergency lowering procedures are life safety features and must be preserved. But the implementation matters. If only vendor staff can execute them and they're not on site, you create long waits. Conversely, giving broad building staff access to override controls can create safety risks if they're not trained. The operational sweet spot is documented, practiced procedures with clear roles and regular drills, so manual measures are fast, safe, and auditable. That preserves uptime and protects people.
Segment 3. Operationalizing resilience. Walk us through maintenance cadences, testing under load, and paperwork that actually prevents surprises after handover.
Start with a clear asset map and responsibility matrix. Who owns the controller, the network port, the UPS, and the emergency power transfer. Include maintenance cadence, preventative mechanical checks, firmware and security reviews on a schedule, and network health checks. Test under load. Schedule exercises during low-impact windows to simulate high-traffic conditions and power transitions. Document and store test results. Contractually, require access to diagnostic logs and a defined SLA for critical failures. Finally, run tabletop exercises with IT, facilities, vendor reps, and security so everyone knows the steps when an elevator goes down. Those practices move you from reactive chaos to predictable response.
Expert example. Michael, can you share a real-world case that illustrates these points? A failure, the immediate response, and the documentation changes that followed?
Sure. We had a multi-tenant office tower where the main machine room lost power during a transfer test. The UPS feeding several elevator controllers had a misrated battery bank and failed after 10 minutes. Elevators went offline during peak egress, security consoles flooded with tenant complaints, and deliveries piled up on lower floors. The investigation found unclear ownership of the UPS, no test schedule for transfer scenarios, and limited remote logging. Post-incident, we updated contracts to define UPS ownership and testing responsibilities, enforced network segmentation for vendor access, required quarterly transfer tests with witnesses from facilities and IT, and added post-test log retention. The result? Significantly reduced downtime in later transfer tests and clear accountability when issues arose. Tenants noticed the difference. That's operational risk turned into disciplined practice.
Key takeaways. 3 practical actions listeners can adopt this week to reduce elevator-related operational risk.
Action 1. Build and publish an asset and responsibility map that includes controllers, UPS, transfer switches, and network endpoints. Action 2. Schedule and witness regular transfer and load tests and keep the logs. Action 3. Define remote access rules and segmentation in writing. Who gets access, how it's granted, and the approval workflow for emergency scenarios. Those 3 steps reduce ambiguity and shorten downtime when things go wrong.
For additional resources, checklists, and a sample responsibility matrix, visit our resources page. You can find links, templates, and the episode notes at GDS Technology site. Visit site for full episode resources and checklists. That wraps up this episode of Built, Wired, and Secured. Today, we explored how elevators function as integrated infrastructure and why clarity around power, network, and operational ownership matters to the people responsible for planning, operating, and protecting technology environments. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Until next time, make sure the systems you're responsible for are built to last, wired with intention, and secured for the real world.